Hi and welcome to Daily TFT Tips. Today, I thought we talk about augments again, but this time from a different point of view. This website called tactic.tools, they're tracking a lot of data regarding augment selection. And it's extremely interesting. They have a lot of data, so even Mortok himself kind of had to admit that this type of data analysis is pretty solid even for the individual player at figuring out which augments are currently overperforming and underperforming. Now I'm sure you've been in a situation where you have different types of augments and you're kind of unsure which one should I pick, which one is the better pick, because maybe they're neutral, right? It's not trade specific. You're like, should I take Thrill of the Hunt or should I take Cutthroat and play for Assassins, which gives me the highest chance at making a top 4? And this is more or less one of the questions that I'm gonna try to answer, or I'll explain at least why for each type of tier, certain augments are currently considered the best and the worst. Let's start with the silver augments. There's obviously a lot of data here. But personally, I'm just going to focus on the following stats, which is that the average placement, this one here, and also the average placements for picking it in stage 1-4, in 3-3, and in 4-6. Currently on the number 1 spot is the augment Calculated Loss. You can only receive it in stage 1-4, and it is extremely powerful. You gain, every time you lose, you gain 2 gold and a free shop refresh. So in effect, 4 gold value per loss. It's especially, people like to combine this with tier 1 reroll comms. It's an extremely popular augment for Twitch reroll with innovators. But there's also an appearance of a brand reroll comp that isn't doing too bad now. Usually Calculated Loss is combined with these types of comms, but you can also just build it to use up an economy. You can be really smart about maintaining a lose streak because you will end up finding upgrades because of the free shop refreshes. But the way which upgraded units you're playing and sometimes even putting them on the bench to maintain the lose streak in stage 2 is super useful. I think one of the reasons this augment has such a high average placement, however, is because it doesn't have a stage 3 and a stage 4. And it's an economy augment, that's your first pick, so that alone is going to make it super strong. Now let's get to the augment that I currently believe is the strongest augment in the game, at least for silver, which is called Sniper's Nest. Sniper's Nest gives you up to 40% damage for your snipers if you end up not moving them from the same spot. 40% increased, and you get an additional Ash. This is so crazy because, I mean, you can put the Ash in right away, you can start stacking the Sniper's Nest, you can go for an Ash reroll comp, which is one of the strongest comps in the game right now. But you don't have to play Ash with this comp. I think there's a lot of decent Jhin comps out there right now. There's Syndicate and Jhinovator. Both of them are honestly pretty solid, and having a 40% increased damage on Jhin is just extremely strong. Definitely one of the top tier augments. Right now, if I see this augment, I'll take it. I'll play Ash, and if I'm contested, I might pivot into Jhin, but I'll always feel confident in picking Sniper's Nest. The next one is So Small. So Small. I think So Small is really solid. Gaining a Corki is also extremely strong, together with a dodge chance. I think So Small is less about playing 6 Yordles though. Obviously, I think I would only play 6 Yordles if I had So Small, but I also still think that this augment is super solid if you only play 3 Yordles. I think it's especially strong if you end up playing some sort of twin shot reroll with a bit of focus on Corki and maybe Vex, and having Vex 3-star in your front line with So Small is just incredibly strong. There's also Arcanist comps who like to take this augment. I think it's very strong. Personally, I don't like taking it as much as something like Sniper's Nest. But that has to do because I don't enjoy playing Yordles as much, especially 6 Yordles. Now we get to Irresistible Charm and One for All. These two are just super solid. Irresistible Charm gives you 20% less damage for Debonaires and a free Leona, which is just completely crazy. One for All is a super solid Syndicate augment that works similar to the Dark Story effect from set 3, where if a Syndicate dies, they make the other one stronger. Both of them super solid. One for All tends to perform very strongly right now because of Ash reroll for one of the reasons, but I mean there's technically also some some Ari comps out there. Syndicates, 7 Syndicates is a super solid comp, and having Syndicate emblem on something like Jin, for example, can also be super strong. Overall, very strong. One for All, especially good together with Sniper's Nest, but if you have both of them in an Ash reroll comp, that's just that's close to Exodia. It's very hard to lose it if you end up hitting Ash 3. I'm not going to go over too much of the other ones. You can check them out yourself. I will leave a link in the description for this website. Let's just look at the worst ones, which is, well, Enforcer got nerfed, and neither 2 or 4 Enforcers tend to be worth it that much. True Justice, that's sort of like a true damage for Enforcers. Honestly, only Vi can really make use of this, and it's not that great of an augment. Definitely not something you should pick in the early game. It has an absolute terrible average 5.24 for stage 1, completely trash. Mercenary Heart is a weird one because mercenary type traits tend to have very poor average placement because of the nature of mercenary, but I think Mercenary Heart is an augment where you should make an exception. It has very poor stats because people take it and force mercenaries, and they screw it up because mercenary is not always the easiest comp to pivot into a great late game, and you tend to be low HP, which immediately lowers your average placing. It's super strong augment, however, so I'm just going to ignore it for this. I think Pirates probably has a problem of it's not that great of an augment, but also people are compelled to playing a lot of mercenaries they overvalue what Pirates actually does, which is just an economy augment at the beginning, which in return it makes them overcommit on bad mercenary units, which is why I think it has such a terrible placement. But I wouldn't say I'm hyped to see Pirates in my augment selection, and I guess maybe I'll take it before the free Quinn to be playing a mercenary opener. But other than that, I think I'd probably skip it. Recombobulator, whatever this thing is called, has a terrible average placement because it's an RNG trait. And I think if more people would be smarter about this augment, for example, I didn't have a video about this. It's called the How to Get Legendaries in Stage 3. I think if more people would be aware that you can move your board during the augment selection, I think the value the average placement of this augment might honestly go up because people screw up their boards less and they get better outcomes. And then we have a bunch of Hextech augments. It makes sense that they're currently outperforming. I think Stored Power still has the combination bug. Hexnova feels like completely useless with 0 impact, and overall the Hextech trait right now is performing really poorly, so it doesn't surprise me to see most of them at the bottom. Let's continue with gold augments. Those are super interesting. So on the absolute number 1 spot we have Sharpshooter, and this is to zero surprise. Sharpshooter is likely the best gold augment in the game right now. I would agree on this. It has a bounce effect for the Sharpshooters. Lucian got buffed so much on this patch. Corki got buffed. Sharpshooters is an absolute S tier comp right now. Twin Shot is an absolute S tier comp right now, and having Sharpshooters with Twin Shot is almost a guaranteed top 4. And quite frankly, if you don't low roll, it's a guaranteed top 2. Having Lucian 3-star with Sharpshooters and damage items, I think he kills the entire enemy team on the first ultimate. It's really hard to lose with it. So if you see this, I think you can just take it and commit on it. And don't forget, you can play Lucian by just rushing level 8 and then slow rolling for the Lucian. If you're contested especially, you don't have to focus too much on Corki. Lucian 2-star with Sharpshooters and damage items can get you to top 4, so you're not required to stay on 6 or 7 and slow roll, which is probably one of the mistakes that a lot of people are making. Smoke Bomb. I think Smoke Bomb is one of the most popular augments for Talon carry. which, well, I mean, there's not that many assassin comps. It pretty much has to be Talon. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of it. If I see Smoke Bomb, I personally, I don't think I would take it right away and hard commit on Talon. And you can also see that it has a much better average rating on stage 3 than stage 1. So if you're already committed on Talon because you ended up hitting a VIP Talon, you hit your 2-star Talon or whatever, and you see Smoke Bomb in your augment selection, it becomes a much better choice than going in blind. So I definitely agree that it's a much more solid stage 3 augment when you're already committed on some sort of Talon reroll. Syndicate Crest is not a surprise. Syndicate is a great comp right now. You have the Ash reroll comp and you have 7 Syndicate type comps, and something people are missing out right now is the Jindicate comp. So running some sort of 7 Syndicates with a Jin carry, super solid right now. If you see it, you can easily take it. It has a great power spike by getting 5 early Syndicates. So overall, I would agree on this. You can also see that, yeah. I mean, something to take into consideration with Syndicate Crest is that 7 Syndicates applies to everyone. So preferably you want to have the Syndicate Crest on the Orianna, which is currently based as one of the top users. So you can actually give Jin good items and he'll still profit from the entire 7 Syndicates. So so if you have a Syndicate Crest, usually better on someone like Orianna, not immediately put it on a Jin. And as for the next two, we have Triforce and Debonair Crest. Triforce is just having it as an early augment is brutal. It looks like there might be some bugs regarding Triforce not appearing later. I think this is a bug from this patch. But anyways, having Triforce as your starting augment is just completely bonkers. You can just put a bunch of 3-cost units on your board. It's super easy win streak, super strong in Twin Shot reroll, which runs a lot of 3 costs like Gnar, Lucian, Gangplank, and Senna. That comp loves Triforce so much. Senna carry as well, going for 3-star Senna, and Senna as the main carry loves Triforce as well for similar reasons. Running something like Morgana, Senna, and Gnar in that comp. Definitely would recommend it. Even just taking it as a win streak augment is perfectly fine. Debonair Crest, this has to do with Debonair. The thing about the Debonair Crest is that, different to the Syndicate Crest, you get a lot of value with the crest itself, right? Because if you give the crest to somebody like Renate or Orianna or Kai'Sa, it doesn't really matter. That person is going to get a lot of HP and AP. So the crest itself doesn't only activate the trait, there's a huge amount of steroids involved in this crest. And this is one of the reasons why I think Debonair Crest has such a good standing. There's also something to consider, which is that there's a lot of great Debonair comps right now. You have the 2 main comps are obviously Talon reroll, and I think they tend to give the Debonair Crest to Echo. But there's also a 7 Debonair comp that either runs VIP Draven or VIP Zeri, and that comp is performing super strong. You can give the Debonair Crest to Kai'Sa, for example, in the late game. And yeah, I personally love playing Debonairs on this patch, so it doesn't surprise me to see it up in the top 5. Let's go to the bottom 5 really fast. So we have Mercenary Crest. So the thing about Mercenary Crest is similar to the Mercenary Heart. It's just Mercenary as a comp will always have a lower average because of the way people play Mercenary and the high risk factor involved with it. Personally, though, I think Mercenary Crest, honestly, I kind of prefer running Mercenary Heart over the Mercenary Crest, simply because my opponents are going to have silver level type of augments that I have to deal with instead of gold level type of augments. It's much easier if people are running around with Thrill of the Hunt 1 instead of running around with sharpshooters, right? So I think this is one of the reasons why Mercenary Crest also has a much harder time, because everybody is just going to be more powerful, while you pretty much get the same value as a Mercenary Heart. Hextech this is just based on Hextech right now. It got nerfed so much. Hextech Crest was one of the better augments in the previous patch because you were able to rush 4 and 6 Hextech and play the Shiver comp. and that comp was super broken. So right now, after everything got nerfed, it doesn't surprise me that Hextech for me personally, it feels terrible to play. I avoid it as much as I can. So I heavily agree that this is not an augment you should be looking for. We also have the Challenger and the Bruiser Crest. I think what you can see here is that they're especially terrible as the first augment. And it makes perfect sense why, right? Because Bruiser Crest and Challenger Crest, they're not that powerful in the early game. I think Bruisers, they got nerfed a lot, and you got the Vi nerfs, the Sejuani nerfs, the Renata nerfs. There's not that many great Bruiser comps out there, and it gives a steroid with HP, but it's not even that great of a steroid. I think you can take it, you can open for Bruisers and have a decent early game, but overall, I think you're scaling terrible, especially for a gold type augment. So if I see Challenger Crest or Bruiser Crest, especially as my first augment, I would avoid it. I think both Challenger and Bruiser comps, like these crests, they push you towards, yeah, let's run 4-6 Challengers, yeah, let's run 4-6 Bruisers, but those comps right now, they don't perform that well. The only thing I can come up with Challenger Crest would be running some sort of Warwick Tryndamere reroll, which is a comp I personally don't like that much right now. It's not terrible, it can win a lobby, but you also kind of need to high roll it. And as your first augment, it's like, do I really want to take Challenger Crest as my first augment, hard commit on a Warwick comp, even though I don't see if this is a game that will favor Warwick? So I think, yeah, this is the reason why I think I personally would avoid these two augments for sure. And as the other bottom 5, we have Three's Company. Three's Company is not a bad early game augment, even though, I mean, 4.5 is alright, I would say, but it's mainly about stage 3 and stage 4. It's an absolute terrible augment for stage 4 and stage 6, stage 3 and stage 4, excuse me, simply because it's just 12 gold. The 3 costs don't make a difference in stage 3, and it's probably, what the hell do I want with 12 gold in stage 4? I want a power augment. It's crazy if you think about it, that this type of augment, just imagine you are in stage 4, right? And your opponents, they get like Sharpshooter or Smoke Bomb or Triforce. They get these huge, powerful combat augments, and their comp explodes in power, right? It's all of a sudden their comp becomes so much stronger, and you're running around and you're saying, yeah, I want to have 12 gold. These guys get Sharpshooters, these guys get 7 Debonaires. I'm gonna get myself 12 gold. It's not surprising that this augment has such terrible stats towards the late game. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're going to address this, because right now there's a situation in stage 3 where you can get both Three's Company and 4 score in stage 3. But why would you take Three's Company over 4 score if both of them are being offered in stage 3? It makes no sense. Right, I think, as far as I understood, Riot agrees on this, and I think they're gonna remove Three's Company for stage 3 and 4. We'll see. Not 100% on this, but we'll see in the next patch notes. I have a feeling it's going to be a long video, but it's okay. Let's get over the Prismatics before we wrap everything up. We got ourselves, as for the top 5, the Debonair Crown, Innovator Soul, Syndicate Crown, Clockwork Soul for some reason, and Triforce. Debonair Crown, Innovator Soul, and Syndicate Crown make perfect sense. 7 Debonairs, super strong, and having 2 Debonair's emblems, both of them extremely powerful, so yeah, that makes perfect sense to me why this is a great augment to take. It also has great power spikes. I mean, having Debonair Crown as your first augment will enable 5 Debonairs immediately, so that's super useful. Innovator Soul, I mean they buffed the dragon again, so, and I think if I'm not mistaken, Innovator Soul was bugged in the previous patches. It wasn't even available to select. So yeah, it's back and it's powerful. I mean, to get Innovator Soul, you're gonna the augment rule about Innovator Soul is 3 innovators need to be activated for it to appear. So if you're running a 3 innovator setup, you get a Tibbers for free, and if you're running 5 innovators, you get a dragon for free. So makes perfect sense why it's rated so high. For Syndicate, it's similar reasons with the similar reasons why other Syndicate augments are doing really well right now. Ash reroll comp and 7 Syndicate type comps are extremely strong in the meta right now. With Clockwork Soul, that's an interesting one. I don't think I've seen this much. This might be based on a very low pick rate, maybe. Okay, I'm gonna say like this. You guys leave me a comment and explain to me why Clockwork Soul has such a high rating, because I'm not really that sure. Maybe I'm underrating it, but let's see what you guys have to say about it. For Triforce and Share the Spotlight, I mean, this makes sense, right? Triforce is just extremely powerful as a starting augment, so not a surprise here. Let's take a look at the worst. Prismatics, we have Mercenary Soul, which is crazy to me considering how strong Mercenary Soul is, especially as the first augment. You can kind of see it has a better rating as a stage 1 augment than 3 and 4, which makes sense. Mercenary Soul, I mean, I think it's crazy. I would take it. It's probably just, again, like every other mercenary augment. It's just the nature of the mercenaries, right? People take it, people misplay it, people take too many risks. They lower the average, but it's probably one of the best prismatics in the game right now, even though the average placement is terrible. So that one is funny to me. High Five is the new tier 5 augment. Doesn't seem to be doing that great. That's pretty interesting. Might have a pretty low data sample. Oh no, actually it does have a decent data sample. That's interesting. Golden Ticket. Oh, I absolutely agree with this. I hate Golden Ticket. Golden Ticket, for me, there's one of these games where a Golden Ticket procs 10 times in a row and you think this is the best augment ever. But most of the time I'm like, where is my Golden Ticket value? These people got 3 loaded dice and they're running around with a 3-star Draven, and I'm happy if I get a shop refresh. I hate Golden Ticket. I hate taking it. I know it can be useful. I don't care. I try to avoid this at every cost. And then we have Bruiser Crown. Bruiser has the issue we talked about before with Challenger. Challenger also isn't doing that well, the Challenger Crown. Bruiser Crown is just, the power level of getting more bruisers doesn't really compare with the power level of a lot of different type of prismatics, and Bruiser Crown will totally bait you into going vertical bruisers, which isn't a comp that is currently performing that well. So if I see Bruiser Crown, I think I'd probably end up avoiding it. As for Battle Mage, that's a pretty interesting one that Battle Mage is performing this poorly. They only have data for stage 1. I'm not sure. Maybe it's bugged. Maybe Battle Mage maybe there's a bug regarding Triforce and Battle Mage and stuff like this, that it's not appearing in stage 3 and stage 4. And I guess it kind of makes sense that it can only appear in stage 1, that it isn't performing that well because you're not running that many units in the early game, and compared to something like Triforce that can't really compete, maybe it's something like this. Okay, that's probably going to be a really long daily. Overall, I love this type of data. I think it's super interesting. I think it can help you guys as a player as well at figuring out which augment actually ends up being a good pick. And maybe it gives you some insight why taking something like Bruiser Crest resulted in you having a pretty poor game, because you got yourself baited into a wrong comp and the power level of your augments just couldn't compare with the power level of the augments of the other guys. I think I'm going to give it a rest here, though. I'll leave a link in the description for this website if you want to check it out yourself, and see you guys tomorrow.